You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and hello to the people, and welcome to another episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show, proudly part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. It is I, Aaron the Brain, and I'm flying solo tonight. Josh was feeling under the weather, and not just because of how dreadful it is these days to be a Miami Dolphins fan, but he came down with quite the cold, and I talked to him just before getting on here live, and believe me, you don't want to hear him the way his voice sounds. And plus, look, at the end of the day, like Josh was going to try really hard to try to put some positive spin on this thing, and at this point, there's just nothing positive to say. I mean, I could really dig deep and I could come up with a few things. I could say, hey, the offensive line played a little bit better. Jacoby Brissett actually looked like a competent quarterback at times in this game on Sunday. But I mean, come on. You got absolutely boat raced by the defending champs. And this was supposed to be this season was supposed to be the one where the Dolphins took the jump from being, not a mediocre team anymore. They were going to be, we're getting close. Maybe we're not Super Bowl close, but we're a playoff team. We're going to be contenders soon. We're on the cusp. And if this early part of the season has shown us anything, it is that this team is nowhere near the NFL's elite. And in fact, they're really, at this point, we might not even be mediocre. This team is bad. It is really bad. I mean, and it seems to be getting worse every week. Because look, it's one thing you got beat 35-0 to Buffalo. You didn't game plan for Jacoby Brissett to be in there and everything kind of went haywire. Fine. That happens from time to time. Then you went into Vegas. You went into the Death Star and you got basically outclassed by them, but you found a way to make it interesting. Then you came home against a team that you should have beaten and you kind of looked bad in that game, but you only lost by 10. But now there's no redeeming quality to this team. And we're going to get into, what the fallout of this should be or is going to be or should be, because it doesn't seem like there's really anything that's happening as far as fallout. Nobody's getting fired. Nobody's losing their jobs. And that is, quite frankly, a little bit disappointing at this point, but not really surprising. But the defense, I've been saying it for weeks, that this defense is not playing very well. And not just is it not playing well, it's playing poorly. And they've been given a pass for a few weeks now because the offense has been so bad and it's had this built-in excuse. Oh, the offense is so bad. There's only so many times that the defense can come up and make a play before they start getting, before it starts cracking and they just start caving. And I made the point that last week, and the week before, it seemed like this defense was cracking even after the Dolphins offense would put a drive together. Well, the defense did absolutely nothing in this game. They had one stop in this game, as far as I'm concerned. That was, the Bucs' first possession of the second half. The Dolphins defense actually came up with a stop, and I thought, oh, okay. Especially after, the Dolphins then followed that up with their most impressive offensive drive of the game, and Jacoby Brissett driving this team down, for like an 80-yard drive for a touchdown. And I was ready to say, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. And sure enough, then it all went to crap, and the defense couldn't do anything and didn't stop the Bucs the rest of the game. The Bucs' only time they were stopped the rest of the game was when they stopped themselves by taking a knee inside the 10 or inside the 5, on the doorstep with 2 minutes left. Otherwise, they easily would have put up 50 on this Dolphins defense. So it's just, I'm tired of this defense getting a pass. I'm tired of Brian Flores getting a pass. And for the first time in his tenure, there's been some whispers the last couple of weeks, but not to the extent that it is right now. It feels like Brian Flores is legitimately on the hot seat now. Now, do I think that he's going to get fired midseason? No, I don't think he's getting fired midseason. I don't know that anybody is getting fired midseason, but because it's just not Stephen Ross's, MO. But if things continue down this path, not only are the Dolphins going to finish with a losing record, but they might be embarrassingly bad. And if the Dolphins are embarrassingly bad, then they're going to have to make a move. And it's not just Chris Greer, who absolutely should be fired. But we've talked about, this Dolphins franchise, their organization, and how they really have been reluctant to clean house, and they've been doing the mixing and matching of GMs and coaches. And so, if you fire the GM, then, this would be your opportunity to just fire the coach at the same time and just clean house and just start from scratch. And you're actually at a really good time to rebuild, and put in a new regime that actually knows what they're doing, because it's still actually an attractive job. There's a lot of draft capital. There's a lot of cap room, and there is some good young talent, even though maybe not as good as we all thought it was, coming into the season. But that said, it was a really, really awful day, to be a Dolphin fan. It just seems to be getting worse and worse this year. And, at this point, it's a wake-up call, because there's only so many times that you can see them get beat and say, hey, it's a fluke, it'll get better next week. At this point, it's like, we're playing the Jaguars next week. We're going to London. And everybody would have said coming into the season, and everybody did say coming into the season, even 2 weeks ago, last week, everybody said, look, that's a win. We're gonna mop the floor with the Jaguars. Look, at this point, this team cannot assume victory against anybody. I mean, any given Sunday, regardless of who you are, but especially this team that has just been absolutely demolished the last 4 weeks. And only has one close game to show for it. And in that game against the Raiders, it really wasn't as close as the score indicated. I mean, the Raiders completely dominated that football game, and the Dolphins were lucky to even have a chance to tie, let alone have a chance to win. So it's just, you can't assume victory. For all we know, this team could be 1-5, after next week. And then people are really going to be, jumping off the ledge. And look, at this point, you just have to accept something. And frankly, I'm as guilty as all of us. Look, I tend to be a little bit more cynical, and I tend to I try to be realistic when it comes to this team. But just like everybody else, I was excited coming into this season. I thought things were moving in the right direction. And even though we'd seen this team put together winning seasons every now and then with a new regime, whether it was Sperano or Adam Gase and then Brian Flores, it just felt different this time. It felt like they were doing it in a different way. It felt like they were winning in the margins, and things were, and they had this young team, and it was Everything was pointing up, and it was going to be different. And that's when they break your heart. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the season or if it's from season to season. Somehow, some way, this team will find a way to get your hopes up, find out when your hopes are at their highest. And that's when they're going to break your heart. So, look, obviously doing the show solo today, and not really knowing that I was going to do it solo until early this morning. I need your guys' help. I'm calling on the people tonight to make my job easier. So I put out, the call on Twitter, and I got some questions for you guys or from you guys. And if you've got more, questions here in the comment section, drop those questions in there and we'll see how many I can get to today. But before we get into those questions, I'd like to remind you that this show is being sponsored by our good friends at BetUS. Sports betting season is in full force. So go on to betus.com. They've been pioneers in the sportsbook industry for almost 3 decades, thriving and paying their loyal customer base. That is betus.com. They have a bunch of bonuses. You can join now, or you can call 800-69. Nice. BETUS. That is 800-MyBetUS. You'll receive 125% sign up bonus by using the bonus code promo code 125. They have re-up and referral bonuses also. BetUS is known as America's favorite sportsbook for a lot of reasons. So follow my lead, get your phone, online, and social sports betting partner with integrity and longevity, just like I did. BetUS, you bet, you win, you get paid. That's BetUS. So we've got a couple of questions here that I want to get. Hey, we'll get to the Manscaped ad later. I didn't forget about, didn't forget about our friends at Manscaped. I'll be doing a live read later. So there's your little radio tease. I want to get to a couple of these questions, and answer them for you guys. I'm going to start out with one, that I kind of touched on. And this comes from our good friend Patrick Mullen, at the Navarone Gun on Twitter. Do you fire Greer now and hire someone to do an evaluation of the staff and conduct a search for a new GM ASAP? Or do you wait until the dumpster fire gets even larger? Or do you wait until the end of the season? So, look, the key thing is you're asking what would I do? Not what I think is going to happen. What I would do, I'd have fired Chris Greer weeks ago. I mean, I would have fired Chris Greer a year ago. But right now, I'd fire Chris Greer, and I would start to do an extensive GM search. I would leave no stone unturned, and I would look, at the end of the day, this is the most important person that you're going to hire for your football organization. You're at a crucial point in this franchise where you've got all of these young players, you've got all this draft capital, you've got all this cap space, and you're not actually, starting from scratch. So you're really in an attractive position. You should be able to get some great candidates. This is where I would really scour the football world and really do a long search. And I wouldn't wait till the off season to do it. I would take as much time as you can to really get that list of candidates and start weeding through it so that, and if you do find somebody before the season ends, then I let them make the decision on Brian Flores. Now, I got into, back and forth with a couple of my buddies, and I've seen a lot of people on, on social media say, well, look, just fire Flores. If you're going to fire Greer, fire Flores. And I don't disagree with it. I don't have a problem with it. If that's the way that they want to go, then I'm all for it, because at the end of the day, what you want is whoever you bring in at GM, they need to have their guy at head coach. But what I would do is I would get that GM and I would let the GM make the decision on Brian Flores. And I would say, look, maybe this GM sees something that he likes in Brian Flores. And so he'd like to keep Brian Flores around. And this is what I'll say to that is, okay, but if you keep Brian Flores, you're putting yourself on a short leash, because if the team sucks next year and there are coaching issues, then that speaks directly to that GM whose first decision was to keep Brian Flores or not keep Brian Flores. So, I personally would let the GM make the decision, because I don't want to hamstring him. I don't want to say like, here, you can't have this head coach. I want to say, look, the stage is yours. You've got all of your options. Do what you want with it. But so we'll see what they do. Do I think it's going to happen mid-season? This team would have to really fall flat on their face, I think, for Stephen Ross to make a move mid-season. I mean, maybe that's what it will be if they lose to Jacksonville, in London. And maybe that's the realization that Stephen Ross needs to see, and needs to come to ultimately make a drastic move. But I think somebody should be losing their job at this point, because this is an absolute travesty what they're putting out there every single Sunday. And again, it's not getting better. And that's really the most disappointing thing. And then, to this question, how are you going to, do a GM search if you don't can? No, I agree. You have to can Greer. That's the whole point of it. You fire Greer now so you can start the search. Then again, it never stopped Stephen Ross before. Remember, this is the same guy that almost hired Jim Harbaugh before we even fired Tony Sperano. So it wouldn't be the first time he's done something like that. So we'll give, we'll answer another question. This one was interesting to me. Outside of Jalen Waddle, is there one wide receiver currently on the roster that you bring back for the 2022 season? I.e. Fuller, Parker, Preston Williams, Albert Wilson, Lynn Bowden Jr., Isaiah Ford somehow made this list, Mac Hollins. And that came from Mike at Dolphins Talk on Twitter. And look, for all the talk about us reshaping the wide receiver room, it really hasn't come to fruition. Now, look, part of it, the last 3 weeks you're playing with Jacoby Brissett. So I think you need to be a little bit more patient with evaluating what you have at wide receiver, when you actually have Tua in the backfield. I think that's important. But what I'll also say is, look, you're not going to just completely strip the cupboard bare. Devontae Parker, actually has a pretty good contract. I see no reason why you wouldn't bring Devontae Parker back at like $8 million a year, as long as he keeps doing what he's doing. Does he get hurt from time to time? Yes. But, honestly, this was a narrative throughout the first, few years of his career. And, last year, Devontae Parker really gutted out the season and played almost the entire season playing through injuries. So I think he earns a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. Did he miss this game with the sore hamstring? Yeah, sure. But he's not on IR with a broken finger like Will Fuller. Will Fuller's on a 1-year contract. He's got a ton to prove, and so far all he's proven is that he can't get on the field. So I don't think we're bringing Will Fuller back if you ask me right now. Outside of Devontae Parker, I think Preston Williams, he's got the rest of the year to kind of prove himself, but he's going to be a restricted free agent, and I feel like somebody's going to throw some money at him. So I don't know that I would necessarily want to pay to bring Preston Williams back. Lynn Bowden is on like a $1 million deal. You still have him under control, under contract. So I don't see any reason why you wouldn't bring him back. And Mac Hollins is going to be cheap and he's good on special teams. So I don't see why you wouldn't bring him back. So I think you're probably looking at Waddle, Parker, Lynn Bowden Jr. and Mac Hollins. And then obviously, if that's your wide receiver core, you obviously are probably going to need to sign a guy and draft a guy to round that out. But I don't think they're getting rid of everybody. I don't think wide receiver is anywhere near the top of the list as far as problems for this organization right now. I think the bigger problems are on the offensive line. Obviously, you got question marks at quarterback, obviously running back, although I'm a big fan of Myles Gaskin. I think obviously we need to get somebody that's more of a bell cow to kind of complement him. But look, Myles Gaskin is just, people underrate him all the time. That's all they do, is they underrate him, and all the guy does is produce. Is he a Pro Bowl guy? No, he's not a Pro Bowl guy. Should he be like, the feature back on a great running offense? No, but there's a spot on this roster for Myles Gaskin, and he's a good football player. I think you just need to compliment him. But the defense, what the hell is going on with this defense? I'll tell you one thing, and I got this question asked, and I think somebody asked it here in the comments section on YouTube, and I apologize to you on YouTube who are commenting. It's a little hard when you're running the show solo to pay attention to those comments. It's a lot easier to pay attention to those comments when Josh is going on a 10-minute rant about things to be positive about. It's a little bit more difficult when I'm going on my rant. But I got this question from Dolphin on Twitter at Let's Go Fins. Do you trade X and Byron to try and get some draft capital for another rebuild? And this is exactly where my mind went after this game. And another reason why I think you need to fire Chris Grier is because you've got a few weeks. You got a few weeks until the trade deadline. And yeah, sure, Chris Grier can make a silly move like, I'm trading Jakeem Grant for a 6th round pick. And he could say, see, I'm not mortgaging the future. But at this point, if you're a Dolphin, if you're in that Dolphins front office, when you get to the trade deadline, the question you have to ask yourself is, are we buyers or are we sellers? And this team, they should not be buyers. At the end of the day, they should be sellers. This team should be building for the future. And look, did they restructure X's contract? Yeah, they restructured X's contract. But really all they did was just kind of kick the can to next year. And so they've got a decision to make ultimately with X, who has not been good this year. I mean, he's had his stretches, but by and large, the guy has not been good. He's given up a passer rating of something like 117, something like that over the first 5 games of the season. He's given up, I think, 4 touchdowns. Antonio Brown completely just scorched him. It wasn't even a good matchup. It was just a completely one-sided matchup. AB completely had his way with X. And so it begs the question, and I mentioned this, it looks like at times X kind of quits. And you saw it at the end of AB's long touchdown. Granted, he's not going to catch him on that play, but you still don't want to see your high-priced player who held out to get a big contract. You don't want to see them quitting at any point in the game. And we've seen this from X. And I'm almost convinced we're going to find out there somehow, like, because X was sort of on the injury report in the middle of the week, that somehow X is like, oh, he's not healthy. We're going to put him on IR or something like that, which I think conveniently happened, when we started 0-7, that in the tank year. I think this is something that X has in his system, and it begs the question of whether or not you really can have him as your highest paid player, because you need your high paid veterans to ultimately be the leaders of your team, and the leaders on your team can't be quitting. And I think that's one of the things that are missing in this Dolphins defense right now is that veteran leadership. The guys that they jettisoned, the Bobby McCains, the Kyle Van Noys, the Shaq Lawsons. You can say what you want about their contracts and about the money they saved by making those moves, but it's not a coincidence that even with all the talent that is on this defense, because there is talent on this defense, that even with all of it, they got rid of some veterans, and all of a sudden it looks like nobody's where they're supposed to be, and there's just a clear drop off in the play from this Miami Dolphins defense. So I don't know if necessarily the route that you go is trading X, but you got to trade either X or Byron Jones, because at the end of the day, you can't be spending $25 to $30 million on your corners and be giving up 450 yards passing. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing peak Tom Brady with Randy Moss and Wes Welker. I don't care if you're playing, a Pro Bowl team, a team of Hall of Fame wide receivers. If you're paying your starting cornerbacks $25 to $30 million, you cannot be giving up 450 yards passing. It's just, you need to spend that money somewhere else. I don't know where else. You figure it out, but it can be better used somewhere else than just wasting it on two corners that really are not getting the job done. If they were making like $8 million a year each, okay, that'd be one thing, but you got like two of the top 10 highest paid corners in the league, and they're just absolutely getting roasted. So it's just not working for me. Brian Flores is on the hot seat. Josh Boyer's on the hot seat. But I don't think if you're Brian Flores, at this point, you fired too many coordinators on the offensive side of the ball to get, if you fire Josh Boyer, who's basically your boy, who you brought from New England, I think at that point, you're just in like job preservation mode, and it's like you're firing somebody just to save your job. So I don't think that's the move that he can make. Brian Flores is going to live and die with Josh Boyer and what he does with this defense, and they better turn it around, or we're cleaning house. We're absolutely going to clean house. So I want to get to one more question. This one made me laugh. It makes me laugh and it makes me cry. Charles Harris has more sacks than most of our players. I think he's got more sacks than all of our players. How is that possible? And, how is anything that the Dolphins have done over the last 30 years possible? How is it possible to go over 20 years without a playoff win? How is it possible to have, one of the best organizations in NFL history, a Hall of Fame quarterback, still in the prime of his career when you move into Joe Robbie, what do you call it? Joe Robbie, Dolphin Stadium, Land Shark, Hard Rock Stadium, whatever you want to call it, Pro Player Park. How is it possible that in my lifetime, I haven't seen this team make it to the Super Bowl, and I've only seen them make it to the AFC title game once? How is it the Charles Harris thing, how is it possible? The team is cursed, bro. They built the stadium on an Indian burial. I'm bought in. They are cursed. They've got to do some rain dancing. They've got to bring in Ken from the Wamapoke tribe in Pawnee, Indiana. They got to fly him down and do some fake ass blessing on this field. They haven't won anything since they moved out of the Orange Bowl and moved into the stadium built on the Indian burial ground. And until that changes, until they make it right with the Native Americans here on National Indigenous Peoples Day, it's time to make it right with the Native Americans and lift the curse, and at the same time bring back the greatness of this Miami Dolphins franchise, because it has been far, far too long. And so we'll put a bow on this show and maybe answer a few more questions in just a bit. But before we do, yes, this show is still hosted by our good friends at Manscaped, and it's football season, baby. And you know what that means? It means we're going for two here with the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped. Blitzing through hairs has never been easier, and it's time for you to join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. And all you got to do is use the promo code DolphinsTalk at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping. It's 3 and out the window with all the other trimmers. Now go tame that Wildcat offense. Because look, we've all been there, guys. We've been there. Like, it's been a few months, maybe you went through the holiday season. You said, hey, it's a little bit cold and I'm going to grow a little bit extra. I need some insulation down there. But then, it's starting to warm up and then you look down there and it's like, it's between whether it's Ryan Fitzpatrick or it's buckwheat. It's not a good look. It's just not a good look. It's spiraling out of control, much in the same way that this Dolphins season is spiraling out of control. So you say, all right, I got to do something about it. But you don't have the right tools. So you just grab the same tools that you're using for your face. And that's quite frankly gross. But you do what you got to do. So you go to work and you get down to to those sensitive areas and it's dangerous. And it's only a matter of time. Maybe you've gotten lucky and you've avoided a couple of nicks in the past, but eventually you're going to make a false step and then you're going to have a problem down there. And so what you got to do is you got to avoid the problem. And how do you avoid the problem? You go to Manscaped, you use the you use the promo code Dolphins Talk, and you get the brand new Lawnmower 4.0, and it's here to take your defense to the next level. This 4th generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology. Take it from me. I used it myself. I've had accidents in the past, but not with Manscaped. So go to manscaped.com, get 20% off free shipping with the code Dolphins Talk. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code Dolphins Talk. Stiff arm your pubes out of the playoffs, just like the Dolphins this year with Manscaped. So we got a little bit here, and I'm going to take a look at some of these comments on YouTube, see if there was anything on here. Here's one from our good friend Angry Al. He's been on this train for a while. Is Wilkins officially a bust? And I've kind of gone back and forth on this. I don't think he's a bust, but I don't think he is a Pro Bowler. I don't think he was like a hit. I think you look at PFF has him rated, I think is something like the 17th best interior defensive lineman. That means he's pretty good. So the issue with our defense seems to be more on the linebackers than it does on the defensive line. But the thing is that Christian Wilkins was also brought in to rush the passer, and he's bad at that. So it depends what your expectations were of Christian Wilkins. Obviously, as a first round pick, you've got a higher level of expectation. If your expectation was that this was going to be a guy that was going to get double digit sacks every game and be a Pro Bowler, yeah, then he's a bust. But I don't think that's why. I think they brought him in to do a little bit of everything, to mostly be a guy that was going to occupy blockers and really be a keystone in their 3-4 defense to really clear up space for the linebackers. And quite frankly, it just doesn't work if you don't have the linebackers. And so that goes on to players like Jerome Baker, who has been very disappointing since signing his contract. How same old Dolphins is that? A guy plays his best, he gets a big contract, and now he sucks. Jerome Baker, same old Dolphins in a nutshell. You got rid of Kyle Van Noy. You bring in Bernardrick McKinney. You decide to let Bernardrick McKinney go because you think a Landon Roberts can do the job better. And a Landon Roberts is something like 115th best linebacker against the run or something like that. Something outrageous. Like we can't do anything right, but I don't think that necessarily goes on Christian Wilkins. Not sure if you answered it yet, but do you think X is going to give it to you? I think X needs to give a whole lot more. He needs to give a damn instead of quitting. And then I'll be a lot more, and then I'll do a lot more singing of X gonna give it to you. X gonna give it to you. Rest in peace. Miami needs to go back to the 3-4 defense. Whatever. Oh, this was a good question that I did get on Twitter. I forget who asked it. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it was. It was Steve Lamb at Real SJL19. This one made me chuckle. Do the Dolphins break out the amoeba defense? That's the one where you got like 2 down linemen and you got like 9 guys standing around. So it's supposed to be really confusing. Do you think the Dolphins break out the amoeba defense like the one against Herbert and the Chargers last year versus Lawrence and the Jags? And look, I wouldn't be surprised, but how ridiculous is it that we've got this in our back pocket and we're going to break it out against the worst team in football? We're not going to use it not against the Bills, not against the Raiders, not against the Colts in a must-win game, not against Tom Brady. We're going to break it out against a rookie quarterback and a team that sucks. That's when we're going to break out we're pulling out all the stops to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's where we're at as a franchise. So yeah, I fully expect that. That's what we're going to break out all the trick plays. We're going to pull out all the stops to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's where this team is at. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? YouTube, what you got for me? What you got? Nothing? Somebody agreeing that Wilkins is overrated. Hire Gruden and get Watson. I don't know why Gruden would leave an amazing contract with the Raiders, and we've covered the Watson thing ad nauseum, so there's nothing to really say there. Let's see. Anything else? Any other questions? Is Tua gonna have much better stats than Jacoby Brissett? I don't know. I'll take Tua back though. Look, Tua's a lot better than Jacoby Brissett at the end of the day. This offense is gonna run better. I think Tua might throw more interceptions than Jacoby Brissett because he's going to take more risks, and he'll probably get sacked a little bit more than Jacoby Brissett because Jacoby Brissett's just bigger and a little bit better at avoiding it. But Tua's going to throw the ball down the field a lot more. I think the offense is going to have a lot more flow. I'm actually very excited to see what Tua does. And look, I kind of made mention of this earlier, and this is not really a small thing, but one of the things that kind of gets swept under the rug in how awful the Dolphins looked on Sunday was the offensive line actually did play better yesterday. And it's not a coincidence that it played better with Liam Eichenberg at left tackle and Austin Jackson at left guard. Look, I don't think Liam Eichenberg is necessarily a franchise left tackle, but I think he is a more stabilizing force at that position than Austin Jackson. I actually think Austin Jackson looked pretty good at left guard, but this team still absolutely needs to get some tackles. But with the offensive line playing a little bit better and Tua coming back next week, I am intrigued to see what this looks like, because at the end of the day, like I said, going into the season, even before we started winning and losing games, we're winning a game and losing a bunch of games. This season is really about Tua. It's about whether or not we can say at the end of the year that Tua is our franchise quarterback, because if you can't say for certain that he is, then you need to start looking for the future there, sooner rather than later. Here's another question from Angry Al. I know he loves the attention, so I know he's loving this. If you do it over, would you rather have Chase or Smith instead of Waddle? Well, I said going into the draft, if you watched our draft preview, I think I did like a monologue on it, that Chase was my guy. I was happy with any of the three, but my ranking was Chase, Waddle, and Smith. I still am in that rank. I would take Chase, and then I would take Waddle, and then I would take Smith. I think, what you're starting to see the warts in Jalen Waddle, but I think you still see the explosiveness that I don't think you see from Devontae Smith. And so it's a matter of, you got to have the right team to use it. You have to have the right coaching. You have to have the right play calling. You have to have the right quarterback. You have to have the offensive line that can block to truly use Jalen Waddle to his full capability. But that said, Jamar Chase is a baller. And that's why Jamar Chase was unquestionably the number one wide receiver on his team. And Jalen Waddle wasn't even, you could make the argument that he had more production before he got hurt than Devontae Smith when both of them were out on the field. But Devontae Smith was still targeted more than Jalen Waddle when they were both on the field, because at the end of the day, Devontae Smith was still looked at as the number one receiver on that Alabama roster there last season. But I'm not mad about the Jalen Waddle pick, but if I had, and the question is if you had to do it all over, because the Dolphins were at number 3. So if they stayed at number 3, they could have taken Jamar Chase. They could have taken Kyle Pitts, but instead they traded down. Ultimately, I still think they made a good move to trade down to number 12, the trade back up to number 6. A lot of people are, giving the Dolphins crap because we gave up our pick and not San Francisco's pick. And now the Dolphins look terrible. And now, everybody's saying, well, you really should have given up, San Francisco's pick there, or, we should still have our first round pick because then we could potentially be sitting with a top 5 pick. Yeah, maybe not. But at the end of the day, my answer to this question is, I still probably would have done things similarly. If I stay at 3, I definitely would have taken Chase. But at 6, I definitely still take Waddle over, Devontae Smith. All right. Were there any other questions? It doesn't look like there are any other questions that we have to answer. So just going to leave you guys with this. At the end of the day, this season was supposed to be the season where we took a big jump, where we got close. It's clear. It's painfully clear. It's painfully obvious. The team is not close. We don't need to wait for them to put a mirage up, beat some bad teams, and make this thing look prettier just for Stephen Ross to say, hey, let's give these guys one more year. Because we've seen that before. And like I said last week, particularly when it comes to the GM, you can't have your GM on the hot seat. If your GM's on the hot seat, you just got to fire him, because you're giving this guy the keys to your future, especially with the amount of cap space and draft capital that this team has. And I definitely don't want Chris Grier making any decisions at the trade deadline, given the fact that he's on the hot seat, and he has to know that he's on the hot seat. I don't care if frankly, he could probably think he's not on the hot seat, and that would, not surprise me, because everything else that he's done as GM would show that he's kind of oblivious to everything. So I guess it wouldn't surprise me, but at the end of the day, you got to get rid of Chris Grier. If you clean house, I'm fine with it. I don't think we're going to see it until the end of the season, but you got to get Chris Grier out. You got to start this search for the GM. And, look, we're back in, draft mode. It's evaluation time. It's time to evaluate Tua, evaluate your offensive line. It's time to get Noah Igbenogany in there, whether he's good or not, because the dude's got to play. You got to play. You got to see if he can get better. There's nothing, it's doing nothing having him on the bench. Let's see what you got there. And let's evaluate what we got, identify the pieces that are going to be here long term. And if they're not going to be here long term, look, let's make some trades. Let's get some draft capital, because at the end of the day, we're still not in bad position to really turn this thing around, and, be a consistent winner in the future. It's just, you got to get the right guy in here to evaluate the talent, use the picks properly, make the right signings. Chris Grier clearly is not that guy. So you gotta part ways with him. And other than that, hey, look, heat season is right around the corner. So as depressing as it is to be a Miami Dolphins fan right now, there's other quality sports teams. Panthers season is right around the corner. They're supposed to be good. I'm not telling you not to watch the Dolphins. I'm just saying, don't get so overly dramatic right now. Lower your expectations of the Dolphins. You'll find it much more enjoyable. And, save your expectations for the real franchises down here, which are the team that plays in the team that plays in Miami proper and the team that plays in Sunrise, because that team in Miami Gardens playing on the Indian Burial Ground, whew, they're just no good, man. So, we will be back on Thursday. By the way, I should have gotten the plugs in earlier. You can follow me on Twitter at Aaron the Brain. Obviously follow the show at Same Old Dolphins. Follow, Josh at Amplified to Rock. Hopefully Josh is getting some rest, getting some fluids, drinking some soup, drinking some tea, and he'll be ready to go on Thursday. And he won't pull like a Will Fuller and have to be put on IR, because I don't know if I could do 3 of these shows on my own. It's not easy. I give Mike a lot of credit when he does these shows on his own. And, really anybody that does any kind of lengthy podcast on their own, I give you kudos. It is not easy work. So hopefully Josh will be back on Thursday as we preview the Dolphins trip across the pond. I think they're playing in Wembley, right? I think they're playing, whatever. They're playing in London. They're going to play, the Jaguars. They'll break out the amoeba defense. Michael Pilardi will throw a touchdown pass. And we can all say, go Dolphins!
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the